Samsung recently unveiled a 200 megapixel sensor that can go on your phone. It's their newest edition of the ISOCELL series of cameras, namely the ISOCELL HP1. It promises to bring you a whole lot of new functionality that you couldn't achieve with lower resolution sensors. Not only is the resolution, but the individual pixels are also pretty big at 0.64 micrometers. Now of course that's not the biggest pixel sizes we have seen, like the Nexus 6P from back in 2015 had 1.55 micrometer pixels. The size of a pixel basically indicates how much light an individual pixel can hold, so if it is larger it will hold more light, meaning that your images will be less noisy and grainy. That's the problem with higher resolution sensors, that if they don't have plenty of light, the images end up being a lot of noisy. That's why they end up having to do things like pixel binning, where they have to combine multiple pixels into one so that the image averages out to look decent. So in most phones, in order to access the highest resolution, there is a separate mode, something called as ultra mode or whatever, that brings you the true resolution of the camera, like 64 MP or something like that. So by default, all of those images will be averaged down to 10 or 12 megapixel pictures anyway. But that is a good thing, like having a 12 megapixel sensor capture a 12 megapixel picture. It's better to have a higher resolution camera capture the same picture and downsample it or pixel bin it down to 12 megapixels, because the averaged image will look much better than the native image. Even though I'm pretty happy with the 12 megapixel sensor that you are seeing me through right now, which records pretty crisp looking 4K 60fps videos, I'm all for having a higher resolution sensor that can promote even higher resolution videos. So we will reach that point someday where you can just casually record 8K videos without even thinking about all the processing that's going on. This higher resolution also means that you'll be able to record higher frames for lower resolution, which we have already established, like 4K. Now you can record 4K at 120 fps. So that means if you export it as 4K 30, you will have 4 times slow motion. That's pretty crazy. It obviously needs extreme amount of software to make this work, so let's see how they implement it when it finally reaches a phone. And as we discussed, it can dynamically merge its pixels based on the light available in the scene. So for bright outdoors, it can deal with smaller pixels to give you better clarity. So it will go to 0.64 micrometers at the maximum 200 megapixel resolution. But at night time, it reduces the pixels down to 2.56 micrometers, which are pretty huge, and the overall resolution drops to 12 megapixels, which is a good thing for low light. You'll end up with a much brighter picture with finer grain in that case. HDR takes a huge benefit with pixel binning as well. Now that you have more data to work with, the software can do whatever it likes to make the image look that much better. I mean, that's all fine for still images because there's infinite time to process that image, but what about a real-time video when you're recording multiple frames every single second? As someone who creates a lot of videos on his phone, that's what I'm most interested in than photos. What might help out in videos is the new autofocus system. They have this thing called double super PD that can track your images and help you focus much better. Larger resolutions struggle with focusing issues, like we had the autofocus problems with the Galaxy S20 when it first came out with the 108 megapixel sensor, if you remember. They had fixed it with S21 and now they have to do something similar here because the resolution is even higher than before. Now I usually don't get that excited just by a news announcement like this, but the 4K 120 fps and the HDR10 capabilities has gotten me very interested. Having a much higher resolution that can perform well on your phone will help you in post-production, like you can zoom in and crop and reframe after the shot. That's why I always record in the highest resolution available to me, which is 4K at 60 fps, even if I'm exporting it in 1080p at the end. Downsampled footage always looks better than native footage, so yeah, I'm really excited to see the 200MP implemented in the right way. I just hope that all these features that they're claiming work the way they advertise.